Today, we will investigate the case of a small child who vanished without a trace after going to the street to meet her father. Detectives began putting together startling clues after her parents contacted the police. The investigation got so confused that it started to look like a TV show about detectives, complete with amazing police work and mind-blowing evidence. When they finally uncovered the truth, it took everyone by surprise. On June 22, 1986, Jessica Knott was born in Altamont Springs, Florida. She was loved by her parents and had a younger sister and an older brother. Her father was a construction worker who frequently traveled for several days, leaving the children with their mother alone. Jessica was a happy, kind child who enjoyed playing with her siblings, hanging out in the great outdoors with friends, and having a great affection for animals. When Jessica was 9 years old, her family made the decision to spend Easter with her grandparents on April 5, 1996. Her mom stayed at their apartment packing for the trip, while her dad went to the store to buy some holiday supplies. Jessica asked her mother if she could go to the yard when she and the other children got back from school. Her dad was supposed to return from the store shortly, and she wanted to wait for him. Her mother agreed and instructed her daughter not to go anywhere else. Tucked away from the main road, their apartment complex was encircled by trees. The mother was reasonably confident in Jessica's safety. Jessica and the other neighborhood children used to play there unsupervised by adults all the time, and nothing ever went wrong. A few hours later, at approximately 6:00 p.m., her father came home and asked his wife where Jessica was. She was taken aback because her daughter was expected to be waiting for her father in the yard, but he insisted that she wasn't. The parents went outside and looked through the whole yard, but they were unable to locate Jessica. Feeling frustrated, they made the decision to ask their neighbors if anyone had seen their daughter. Jessica was spotted in the yard earlier, according to a neighbor. She was sitting on a bench reading a book, but this did not help her worried parents find her. They decided to call the police as night fell and their daughter was still missing. In a matter of minutes, police arrived, began searching, and began questioning neighbors. The police extended the search area to neighboring streets after they were unable to locate Jessica. A few hours later, the police station received an unexpected call. The caller's voice was muffled by background noise, but the operator heard that the missing girl would be found near a water pumping station a few miles from her home. When police arrived on the scene, they were met with a tragic scene. Jessica's corpse was wrapped in a black garbage bag and lying close to the station. Jessica could not have been seen from the road, even though the pumping station was only a few yards away because it was hidden beneath a bridge. There were a few magazines and a kid's mirror next to the body. Police identified Jessica Knott as the victim right away, and they gave the body to the medical examiners. Meanwhile, the detectives concentrated on tracking down the 911 call. The call appeared to have originated from the murderer, and authorities were hopeful that this information would aid in their identification. However, there was a problem. The call was placed from a payphone at a gas station that was less than a mile from the crime scene, and naturally, the perpetrator had already left by the time the police arrived. It was difficult for investigators to locate fingerprints on the phone. There might be more than one print because it was a public payphone. Additionally, the investigators discovered that the perpetrator had probably used gloves or wiped the phone after the call. Experts arrived at the conclusion that the girl was murdered somewhere else and that her body was brought to the water pumping station. Traces found on the ground in front of the building suggested that the murderer had most likely taken the body out of a car, placed it in a garbage bag, and dragged it across the area. Jessica's clothing was intact, with the exception of one shoe, which police could not find in the bag or the surrounding area. The tire track on the ground was the only lead discovered at the crime scene. Police were unsure whether it belonged to the killer's vehicle, but they photographed it and made a cast. Medical examiners examined the body and determined that the victim died of strangulation. It appeared that the murderer used their bare hands to do the killing based on marks on her face and neck. Additionally, a hamburger that was eaten less than an hour before she passed away was discovered in her stomach. Police came to the conclusion that the murderer supplied the food because Jessica's mother claimed she had not given her anything similar that day. Experts discovered no evidence of sexual assault, which completely obscures the perpetrator's motivation. Jessica's parents were initially thought to be suspects by the police. When she vanished, neither of them had a credible alibi. Although the father was allegedly shopping and the mother was packing in the apartment, both of them had the chance to carry out the crime. Police made an effort to figure out how the murderer had taken Jessica from the courtyard of her apartment building without anyone noticing or the girl screaming. They concluded that the victim had probably known the offender for a long time and had left voluntarily. The tone of the killer's voice during the 911 call was another contributing factor. The assassin's voice had sadness and remorse in it, as if they truly regretted killing the victim, even though the experts had worked hard to restore the tape. The murderer's decision to call 911 despite the risk involved said volumes. The offender may have done it for the excitement of playing cops and influencing the investigation, or they may have truly regretted what they did and wanted to find a way to make it feel less bad. Given the caller's obvious sadness, investigators tended to choose option number 2. A curious discovery was made in the trunk of Jessica's father's vehicle when the police examined it. A roll of black garbage bags, identical to the one holding the victim's corpse, was present. However, the man was temporarily ruled out as a suspect, and investigators turned their attention to other people when an expert examining the bag from the crime scene quickly determined it differed from those found in the father's car and clearly belonged to a different role. After searching the victim's body and clothing for any clues, forensic specialists found a few leads. A significant amount of dog hair was present. Given that Jessica's family did not own a dog, the murderer most likely owned the animal. On her body, they also discovered human hair that belonged to an unidentified white man. But it took a few days for specialists to extract the DNA profile. Additionally, 2 different kinds of foreign fibers were found on the girl's clothing. Experts deduced from examining their structures that one most likely originated from a car seat cover and the other from a carpet. This provided additional credence to the theory that the victim was killed somewhere else and driven to the water pumping station. Experts tried to identify the breed of the dog hair from Jessica's clothes by utilizing the FBI database, which included microscopic images of hair from different dog breeds. In criminal cases where dog hair may be a crucial piece of evidence, this database has shown to be useful. Experts eliminated breeds one by comparing the hair sample with samples from the database. Ultimately, they came to the conclusion that the victim's clothing contained hair belonging to a Sharpie. Such a dog was reportedly owned by the murderer, and the hair from the animal ended up on Jessica's clothing, either at their home or in their car. Investigators believe that Jessica may have been tricked into getting into the killer's car in some way. He took her to McDonald's for a hamburger, then brought her home and murdered her. In the meantime, the professionals tried to improve the call recording, but it was a difficult undertaking. They made the decision to attempt an alternative strategy, so the investigators sent the audio file to NASA and asked for help. NASA possessed sophisticated audio recording removal tools that were initially intended to improve space recordings. They consented to assist and gave the police an audio recording with better quality. To make a match between the voice sample and the call recording, the experts still required a sample of the suspect's speech. They chose to play Jessica's mother the call recording in the hopes that she would be able to identify it, based on the detective's suspicion that the murderer may have known Jessica. When the mother heard it for the first time, she said the voice seemed familiar, but she could not recall whose voice it was. On the second try, though, she was able to identify the voice. She identified the voice as that of their shared complex neighbor. Despite her inability to recall his name, she informed the investigators that he frequently strolled his Sharpie around the yard. The man was quickly recognized by police as James Crow, 35. He and other neighbors were questioned by investigators in the early hours following Jessica's disappearance. He said that when he was walking his dog in the yard, he noticed her. After a brief conversation, he left. After investigating his past, investigators discovered that Crow had no criminal record. He shared a home with his spouse, a nurse, currently unemployed. The man was a former truck driver. He mostly just walked the streets with Pumpkin, a Sharpie. The detectives got a search warrant for his car after realizing that having a dog of a particular breed and having a similar voice were insufficient grounds for an arrest. They found two unsettling hints there. There was an empty Happy Meal bag under the front passenger seat. Given that James was childless and Jessica had a McDonald's hamburger in her belly, this seemed very suspicious. Experts also noted that the vehicle's brand new tires appeared to have been used very little, even though his old tires were not that old and might have lasted for a few more years. Police discovered that Crow replaced them the day Jessica was killed. The police went to this service building after Crow claimed to have left the old tires there, which was highly unusual given that the tires were not even old. Only one tire remained from James's car when they got there. When investigators compared its tread pattern to what they discovered close to the body, they discovered an unexpected discrepancy. They did not match. They were not initially certain, though, that the killer's car was the one that left the tire mark on the ground rather than another vehicle. For instance, this tire mark might have belonged to a maintenance staff member who frequently visited the building. After searching James' apartment, the police discovered a fresh lead. A box with multiple rolls of trash bags that were the same color and size as the ones found on the victim's body was present. Since this was obviously insufficient to be regarded as solid evidence, the investigators had to determine whether there was any way to prove the bags had originated from the same roll. This task looked impossible at first. There were hundreds of manufacturers of these products, and the bags themselves bore no markings or distinguishing characteristics. However, even the detectives were taken aback by their own inventiveness in handling such a difficult case. They got in touch with Noel Roberts, who was in charge of quality control at the business that made the bags that were discovered in the suspect's apartment. Initially, he pinpointed the exact manufacturing facility where the bags were manufactured. The cardboard box holding the rolls had a unique code that revealed the product was manufactured at a Virginia facility. The expert went on to say that since the factory makes bags in a variety of colors, the materials used in their production are always changing, and a small amount of iron or titanium is added to the bag's composition based on their color. The ratio of plastic to titanium or iron varies on a daily basis because it is not necessary to measure such minute amounts with 100% accuracy. To put it another way, specialists could use high-intensity X-rays to measure the elements present in the plastic bags from the crime scene and the suspect's apartment and obtain an extremely accurate ratio. Not only did this analysis show that the proportion of titanium and iron to plastic in both bags was exactly the same, suggesting that they were produced on the same day and ought to be on the same badge, but it went much further than that. A small amount of microscopic debris gets on the machines during the trash bag production process, but this is acceptable according to production standards. But when the plastic sheets are rolled out and later cut into bags, this causes tiny streaks that are visible to the unaided eye. Each roll of fabric has a different pattern due to the large amounts of these streaks on each bag. The pattern of comparable streaks is only maintained for a few hundred feet of fabric at most because the debris particles on the conveyor belt are continually moving, falling off, and being replaced by new ones. This indicates that the two distinct bags were not only created in the same batch, but also within a few hours of one another based on the pattern observed. The lines on the bags from the crime scene and the suspect's apartment match remarkably precisely, according to experts, but that is not all. The experts also clarified that after the bags are made, they are rolled into a bundle by a machine, which frequently produces somewhat uneven rolls. However, these deviations are nearly undetectable, and the rolls appear smooth to the untrained eye. But looking closer at the bag's edges reveals tiny creases and folds that create a pattern just as distinctive as the streaks. When the experts finally compared the bags once more, they discovered that the pattern on the bags from James' apartment and the crime scene were identical. After taking all of this into account, they came to the conclusion that the bag used by the murderer was not only made by the same company, but also fell within a manufacturing range around 17 boxes apart. This meant that the perpetrator almost certainly took the bag from one of the rolls in James' apartment. The two kinds of fibers discovered on Jessica's clothes were also compared by forensic experts to the carpet in the suspect's apartment and the seat covers in his vehicle. Both samples were the same. Ultimately, after comparing a voice sample from James with a 911 call recording, a sound specialist determined that the voices belonged to the same person. Even with the amazing work the experts produced, the detectives had one significant issue. While all of these could be considered circumstantial evidence, they were certain that James was involved and chose to take him into custody. After the man was placed under arrest, the prosecution declared that it would pursue the death penalty. Given Crow's persistent denial of guilt, the case moved forward for trial. The prosecution laid out their version of events leading up to this crime. Because they never missed an opportunity to play with Pumpkin, the neighborhood kids knew James well because he spent a lot of time outside with his dog. They trusted him because of this, and Jessica was no different. The police account states that James saw her by herself on a bench that day while out for a walk with his dog and struck up a conversation. Given that she was familiar with him, Jessica accepted his offer to take her to McDonald's in exchange for a hamburger. He probably took her back to the apartment complex after the restaurant and invited her to come to his house. He might have suggested that she play with Pumpkin. His wife was at work, and the presence of carpet fibers from his living room on Jessica's clothes indicated that she had been there on the day she died. Investigators believe James attempted to assault the girl, but that attempt was unsuccessful. The forensic report states that in addition to strangling the victim with his bare hands, the offender also put his palm against her face. Maybe he panicked and attacked Jessica because she attempted to scream. When the girl died, he put her body in a trash bag so the neighbors would not think anything of it when he took it to his car. He left the body next to a water station after driving a short distance, called 911 from a nearby gas station, and then headed back home. James' attorneys made an effort to refute every piece of evidence during the preliminary hearings, claiming that there was insufficient evidence to prove their client's guilt. Although the judge accepted it, the defense was correct. The burden of proof is substantially higher in cases involving the death penalty, and James had a good chance of avoiding this punishment. Given these circumstances, the suspect was offered a plea agreement. He admitted guilt to second-degree murder and accepted a 40-year prison sentence without the possibility of parole in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. James accepted the deal 2 years after the murder in the summer of 1998. By its terms, he was not obliged to reveal any information about the crime. Nonetheless, he acknowledged that a portion of his choice was to protect Jessica's family and spare them from the trial. The prosecution cited the offender's 911 call, the reason for which was still unknown, as evidence that he genuinely expressed regret. James's sincere desire to lessen his guilt for committing such a horrific crime was the only plausible explanation in this situation. Jessica's parents had hoped for the death penalty, so they were unhappy with the agreement. They also desired the killer's confession, but James said nothing. Nevertheless, he passed away before his term was up. At the age of 49, James passed away in November 2011 from health issues, taking with him the specifics of his deeds and motivations. The work done by experts and detectives on Jessica's case was genuinely exceptional. Even the judge, who had never seen such evidence in his career, was astounded by the quantity of information they were able to obtain by looking through regular trash bags. On September 24, 2021, tragedy struck when 3-year-old Airlie Doe fell victim to a terrifying exorcism conducted by her own family. The distressing cries and screams of the young child echoed within the walls of Iglesia Apostoles y Profetas, a small Pentecostal church in San Jose, California. Unfortunately, Airlie took her last breath during this harrowing exorcism attempt, orchestrated by her mother, Claudia Hernandez Santos, uncle Reen Aaron Hernandez Santos, and grandfather Reen Trigueros Hernandez. As prosecutors delve into this heart-wrenching case, they uncover the horrifying details of a fatal church exorcism that has deeply shaken the community. Now, with all 3 family members facing accusations, the legal proceedings aim to bring justice for little Airlie, who tragically lost their life at the hands of the very family that should have protected her. The investigators' diligent efforts over several months have unraveled the roles played by each family member, mother, uncle, and grandfather, all equally contributing to the tragedy that befell this innocent child. The question remains, did Airlie Doe receive the justice she deserved? Let us delve further into the matter. San Jose, California, holds a special place with its museums, gardens, and historic architecture, standing proudly at the heart of the state. As of the 2023 population census, this vibrant city is home to 930,862 individuals from diverse backgrounds and walks of life. Over the past 5 years, the crime rate has experienced a significant increase. Despite being recognized as one of the safest major cities in America, the crime rate per 100,000 people slightly surpasses the average rate of 316.3. However, the incident involving Airlie Doe was an isolated occurrence driven by religious beliefs. It is a tragic reminder that a young life was cut short prematurely. Nestled within the serene streets of San Jose, the seemingly ordinary Iglesia Apostoles Profetas, a small Pentecostal church, became the focal point of a chilling crime that unfolded in September 2021. Within the confines of this unassuming church, a horrifying exorcism took place, forever leaving its walls tainted with the haunting echoes of Airlie Doe's tragic demise. The Hernandez family consisted of Claudia Elisia Hernandez, a 25-year-old mother, and her 3-year-old daughter, Airlie Doe, who tragically became the victim of a horrifying exorcism. Alongside Claudia, Airlie's uncle, Reen Hernandez Santos, and her grandfather, Reen Hernandez Sr., were also involved in this disturbing incident. Not much is known about the uncle and father of the victim. The family's spiritual journey took place within the confines of Iglesia Apostoles y Profetas, a small Pentecostal church, where Airlie's grandfather, a certified pastor and the leader of the church, played a significant role. The family's occupations outside of their religious roles remain undisclosed. Claudia, the mother, managed a YouTube channel where she shared live videos. However, one thing that was certain was their deep religious devotion. It was this religious affiliation that led them to believe that the child was possessed, ultimately resulting in her tragic demise. On September 24, 2021, a dark chapter unfolded in the life of this 3-year-old child as her family's misguided attempt to rid her of what they believed to be an evil spirit led to a day of unimaginable horror. The events that unfolded on this fateful day would later become the focus of legal proceedings and public scrutiny. It all began when Airlie woke up during the night and started screaming intermittently. Claudia Elisia Hernandez Santos, Airlie's mother, believed that her child's tantrum was the result of malevolent forces and took her to the church to perform an exorcism. In her attempt to exorcise the supposed evil spirit, Claudia repeatedly inserted her finger into Airlie's throat. Despite the immense pain she endured, Airlie fell asleep multiple times due to exhaustion. Her uncle and grandfather held her down, gripping her neck, which ultimately led to asphyxiation. According to Claudia, Airlie's vomit had a purple color. The tragic 2-hour-long ceremony concluded with the family delaying medical assistance for nearly 2 hours after the passing of their loved one. Claudia contacted the police just after 8:00 p.m. to report her daughter's lifeless condition. Upon arrival at the Iglesia Apóstoles y Profetas Church in San Jose, the authorities found young Airlie unconscious on the floor, setting off a series of distressing events. Airlie suffered severe physical abuse, lost consciousness, and exhibited signs of trauma with injuries on her eyes, face, neck, and chest. The family's belief in demonic possession led to a prolonged ordeal lasting around 12 hours. Paramedics arrived 2 hours later to find her lifeless body, marking the end of a day filled with torment. The affidavit filed in Santa Clara County Superior Court revealed that Claudia believed her daughter had passed away between 6:00 and 6:30 p.m. The family's distorted spiritual beliefs and misguided attempts to expel evil through abusive practices cast a dark shadow over Airlie's final moments. The investigation into Airlie's tragic death unfolded as a chilling narrative of religious fervor gone wrong, culminating in a horrific exorcism carried out by her own family members, her mother, uncle, and grandfather. The subsequent legal proceedings revealed shocking details of the 12-hour ordeal that led to Airlie's demise within the walls of the small Pentecostal church Iglesia Apóstoles y Profetas in San Jose, California. The investigative process took a significant turn when Santa Clara County District Attorney Jeffrey Rosen filed court documents to consolidate the cases of all 3 family members into a single trial. The reason for this request was based on the argument that each defendant had a reprehensible role in the violence inflicted upon Airlie, which made it difficult to determine individual responsibility for specific injuries. The court records provided a disturbing timeline of events that occurred on September 24, 2021. Claudia Hernandez Santos, Airlie's 25-year-old mother, initiated the tragic series of events by contacting the police to report her daughter's lifeless condition. When authorities arrived at the Pentecostal church, they found Airlie unconscious on the floor, later confirming it as a homicide caused by suffocation and smothering. The investigation uncovered horrifying details of the family's collective actions during the 12-hour exorcism attempt. Prosecutors argued that all 3 defendants, including Airlie's mother, uncle, and grandfather, actively participated in physically abusing the young girl. At different points during the ordeal, each family member held Airlie at various parts of her body, with one gripping her neck, another her abdomen, and the third holding her legs. The alleged attempt to induce vomiting involved a disturbing collaboration of efforts. The preliminary autopsy confirmed that Airlie's death was a result of homicide, specifically asphyxia, due to suffocation. As investigators delved into the distressing circumstances surrounding the little girl's demise, alarming details emerged. According to court documents, the family, driven by the belief that Airlie was possessed by a demon, engaged in a twisted form of prayer and exorcism at the church. Airlie's mother, in an effort to rid her daughter of the perceived evil spirit, resorted to distressing methods such as attempting to induce vomiting by inserting her fingers down Airlie's throat and squeezing her neck. These actions escalated throughout the day. The investigation revealed a disturbing lack of care for Airlie's basic needs leading up to her death. The victim's last meal was on Thursday, September 23rd, at approximately 9:00 p.m., according to the affidavit. Shockingly, she was only given about 6 ounces of water from Thursday until the time of her death. The coroner's report revealed the extent of Airlie's suffering, with injuries to her face, neck, chest, and back caused by blunt force. The presence of internal bleeding added another layer of brutality to the acts committed by her own family members. As the investigation progressed, the family members were charged with child abuse, including assault on a child resulting in death. These legal proceedings shed light on the distorted beliefs that motivated the family's actions, rooted in the misguided belief that Airlie was possessed by a demon and that a religious ritual could expel this perceived evil. The court documents examined the individual statements made by each defendant during police interviews. Airlie's grandfather, who claimed to be the pastor of Iglesia Apostoles y Profetas, provided inconsistent accounts of the events leading to the young girl's death. His changing narratives raised suspicions about the accuracy of his statements and suggested potential inconsistencies or attempts to hide the truth. Similarly, Airlie's uncle, Rein Aaron Hernandez Santos, significantly changed his initial account during subsequent interviews with the police, indicating a lack of transparency and prompting further investigation into the circumstances surrounding the exorcism. If convicted, Claudia Alicia Hernandez could face an exceptionally severe sentence of 25 years to life in prison. The investigation took place amidst a troubling trend of increased demand for exorcisms driven by factors such as poverty, anxiety, and a lack of trust in conventional institutions. The tragic case of Airlie Doe serves as a stark reminder of the inherent dangers that arise when religious fervor and unchecked beliefs intersect. As the legal proceedings unfolded, the need for a consolidated trial highlighted the complexity of assigning individual responsibility in a crime committed collaboratively. The family's statements and actions, as uncovered during the investigation, offer a chilling glimpse into their perspective on the events surrounding the young girl's untimely demise. The family's narrative begins with Airlie's mother, Claudia Hernandez Santos, expressing her belief that her daughter was possessed by an evil spirit. According to the statements provided to the police, Airlie would often wake up at night crying or screaming, which solidified the family's conviction that she was under the influence of a demonic force. In response to these deceived manifestations, Claudia attempted what she described as an exorcism to rid Airlie of the alleged evil spirit. Claudia's involvement in the exorcism took a disturbing turn as she matter-of-factly detailed the methods she employed. First responders who arrived at the scene noticed bruising around the child's eyes, neck, and chest. Claudia admitted that they waited for 2 hours before finally calling 911. Subsequent interviews with investigators shed light on Claudia's evolving beliefs regarding Airlie's possession. Claudia and her uncle reportedly prayed for Airlie while inside a bedroom. The situation escalated the following morning when Claudia and her uncle drove Airlie to the Iglesia Apostoles y Profetas, a small Pentecostal church. The family still held the belief that Airlie was under demonic control. They believed she had passed away between 6 o'clock and 6:30 p.m., approximately 12 hours after arriving at the church. According to Airlie's father, they felt compelled to perform a ceremony to free her from the clutches of evil spirits. The specifics of the exorcism were not disclosed. However, it was mentioned that Airlie was asleep upon arrival at the church. The individual also emphasized, "If you refer to the Bible, you will see that Jesus expelled demons and restored the health of the sick." As reported by the newspaper, "It is not my decision to act. It is when God, in His will, chooses to heal the individual. The preacher is merely an instrument of God. Our actions are guided by God's will." Following Airlie's passing, Claudia initiated a GoFundMe campaign to gather funds for burial costs. The family's strong religious beliefs were evident in Claudia's Instagram bio, which featured a reference to Isaiah 55:8-11. a Bible verse about finding strength in challenging times. Erli's mother contributed to the investigation through YouTube videos she shared, offering her perspective on her daughter's death. In these videos, Claudia did not accept responsibility for the alleged exorcism or her daughter's demise. Instead, she attributed Erli's passing to a divine intervention, stating that God had taken her and expressing relief that her daughter would not have to face the difficulties of the world. In an unexpected development, a YouTube video emerged in January, 4 months after Erli's death, featuring Claudia Hernandez discussing her daughter's passing. The 40-minute video, titled with Erli's full name, provides a chilling glimpse into Hernandez's demeanor as she addresses the circumstances surrounding the tragedy. Hernandez's statements in the video aim to offer her perspective on the situation, highlighting that only those present truly comprehend what unfolded. She acknowledges the negative perceptions surrounding her and her daughter's death, but stresses her inability to alter the past. Hernandez expresses gratitude that her daughter is no longer enduring the challenges of an increasingly difficult and deteriorating world. In fact, the video serves as a poignant exploration of Hernandez's emotions, delving into the anguish of losing a child while also showcasing moments of apparent attachment. She reflects on the joy of motherhood, acknowledging the sadness, tears, and longing she feels for her daughter. The video's portrayal of a complex emotional landscape adds another layer of intricacy to an already deeply tragic narrative. Just 6 days after the YouTube video was uploaded, prosecutors formally charged Hernandez. The gravity of these charges, combined with the perceived disparity between Hernandez's demeanor in the video and the alleged actions leading to Erli's death, highlights the complexity of the case. The family's association with Iglesia Apóstoles y Profetas took a darker turn when the church was linked to another incident, an alleged kidnapping involving individuals associated with the church. Professor Alison Cavey, an expert in the history of magic, science, and religion, provided valuable insights into the broader context of exorcisms. She emphasized the growing prevalence of exorcisms in both the United States and Latin America over the past 5 to 7 years. Cavey pointed out challenges arising from the Catholic Church's lack of preparedness in training priests to perform exorcisms, resulting in a demand that surpasses the number of qualified individuals available. She also identified societal factors such as poverty, anxiety, and the lack of trust in traditional educational institutions as driving forces behind the demand for exorcisms. Cavey stressed that when people opt for supernatural explanations like demonic possession, it often stems from dissatisfaction with natural explanations, providing solace without the burden of blame or responsibility. In the case of Erli's family, the tragic events unfolded amidst their desperate attempt to solve a problem they may not have fully comprehended, attributing it to supernatural forces. It is disconcerting how the family displayed no sense of guilt or sorrow even after the loss of Erli. Claudia's arrest was preceded by a YouTube video that provided a glimpse into her emotional journey, from the joy of pregnancy to the profound sorrow of losing her daughter. Her sentiments reflected the challenges of accepting the loss of a child to illness, leading some to seek solace in supernatural explanations. The legal proceedings that followed revealed that Claudia Alicia Hernandez Santos was charged with felony assault on a child, resulting in death due to great bodily injury. Her arrest on January 31, 2022, shed light on the gravity of the crimes committed during the tragic exorcism. This horrific incident not only claimed the life of a young child, but also exposed the dangerous consequences of misguided beliefs and heinous actions. The case of Eri Doe reached its conclusion when Claudia Alicia Hernandez, a mother, was charged with felony assault on a child, emphasizing the extreme nature of the alleged actions against her own daughter. The decision to deny bail was made to ensure public safety, considering the perceived risk of flight. Factors such as Hernandez's limited ties to the community and her birthplace in El Salvador were cited as reasons for this precautionary measure. This underscores the seriousness of the accusations against Hernandez and the potential dangers she may pose if released before trial. The disturbing details of the case were revealed through recently uncovered court documents, as the San Jose Police Department and the District Attorney's Office had initially withheld information about the tragic homicide. The investigation aimed to uncover the circumstances surrounding Arely's death, ultimately leading to Hernandez as the sole individual arrested in connection to the case. The intertwining of faith and crime in these unsettling cases raises significant concerns. It is deeply troubling to witness how religious beliefs can be manipulated and exploited to justify heinous acts. These cases highlight the importance of maintaining a balance between religious freedom and ensuring the safety and well-being of individuals. It is crucial for authorities to thoroughly investigate and hold accountable those who commit crimes under the guise of faith, while also respecting the rights of individuals to practice their religion peacefully.